Well, welcome and thank you for joining me, Tom Loucks, Communications Director from the City of Marshfield, and this is Connections. This episode, we're going to focus on the COVID-19 coronavirus and what our city here is doing to get the information out to the residents about our services, as well as other services that are happening right here in the community of Marshfield. I had a chance to sit down with Steve Barg, our city administrator, as well as Josh Miller, our development services director, and he, as well as the other guest, Steve, are going to give us some very, very good information on what's happening within the city, as well as some resources that are happening through Mackey, our chamber partner. Josh is going to share that information if you run a business, or if you don't run a business. There's very good information financially to help that out.
It's interesting how COVID-19 has really changed all of our lives, and it certainly changed the way we do business here at the city, and that includes public meetings, Tom. On March 19th, we got approval from the council to cancel all council and committee meetings through April 10th, but that'll be coming up here soon, so the question is what happens then? We're planning to get back to the regular council meetings on Tuesday, April 14th. Right now, it looks almost certain that we're going to do it by remote means rather than in person. You know, we did have a meeting on March 19th where we had the council in person. Maybe people saw it. We took two of the council members, put them down on the floor, separated out people as best we could, tried to keep the 6-foot distance, but it was hard. It's a challenge. And then you have the public who might show up too. So anyway, we're looking at doing this by remote means, possibly Zoom. And we would have to let the public know how they could watch the meeting, how they could get clued in, and how they might be able to provide input to the meeting. And that's something we talked about the other day. You, me, the city clerk, Deb Hall, and the technology director, Ing Ong. So, but we are planning on starting the council meeting on April 14th electronically. Then the question becomes, what about all the committees? And some of those are going to be a little bit more of a challenge because we don't have all elected officials. We have people who are private citizens who maybe don't have good internet access or aren't tech savvy. And we have to work that out with some of those committees like historic preservation, park recreation, and forestry, those types of groups. But do expect the normal business of the council to go on regularly beginning Tuesday, April 14th. Tom, first to finish up a little bit on elections, we're having this conversation on Thursday, April 2nd. There will be one more day for absentee balloting here at City Hall from noon to 5 on Friday, April 3rd. It's a requirement that we do that by state law, that we be open for a portion of the Friday before the election. But you're right, otherwise we're closed to normal traffic here. We still have people walk up to our door and see the sign. We're trying to encourage people to either call us, and our phone numbers are in the phone book, or connect with us on our website, where you'll also find our email addresses and phone numbers, but where you also will find ways to just find the answers to your questions. So maybe you don't even need to talk to a staff person. You can look up what the latest is on recycling or other city services, and it may even preclude the need to call somebody. So we're trying to plug people into those options, and certainly email and phone are always good, but the website is really helpful. Beyond that, yeah, we have closed a lot of our facilities, Tom. We've closed the zoo and some of our other facilities, parks, playgrounds are closed now, and we feel bad about curtailing those buildings, especially the library and the community center. Those are so heavily frequented, but with COVID-19 and the social distancing requirement, it was just too hard to keep them open. Having said that, we do conduct business. We have a lot of things we have to do. We still have our own internal things like payroll and accounts payable, but we are trying our best to interact with the citizens to give them the answers and the help that they need during these difficult weeks.
Let's talk about financial means. Does this set back the city in any way because of this crisis? I know local businesses are going to be set back. What about city government?
Yeah, it doesn't set us back in a hard cost setting in terms of actual dollars that we're losing. It sets us back in a soft cost because we have so many people working on COVID-19 response, and the state of Wisconsin and and the federal government, I think, are looking at ways to possibly help the city. And we're supposed to be tracking our time as best we can spent on COVID-19. And I'm sure that not only Marshfield, but a lot of communities across the state and across the country will submit looking for reimbursement of some of their expenses. It's going to be the easiest, I would expect, to get reimbursement on hard costs. pieces of equipment we had to buy or things we had to do renovation to make social distancing possible in our facilities. Soft costs are going to be a little bit harder to collect on. The fact that Steve Barg spent 25 hours of his week, working on COVID issues, that may or may not fly very far with the authorities looking to reimburse us, but we're going to submit for all the costs we've entailed and let them sort that out. Otherwise, directly speaking in terms of hard costs, we're really not losing, although we know that our businesses are hurting, and ultimately that takes a toll on all of us in terms of if a business closes, what does that mean for the assessed value of that property? And the vibrancy of our community depends upon our businesses. So that is concerning.
All right. Well, longer this goes on, the harder it gets for everybody. We're all told to be home as much as we can. What about employees' morale? How is that happening? How's it going over in City Hall or other departments? Is it good? Can you report on that for me?
Yeah, Tom, I think it's taking a stress on all of us, or a toll on all of us, like it is the general public. We are working, many of us remotely. I'm in my office most of the time, but a lot of people are working from home if they can to try and maintain social distancing for ourselves. And there's a skeleton crew here. I think it's getting old. People are getting a little tired of it. And one other thing you don't usually think about is camaraderie and fellowship, if you will, with your fellow workers. I mean, we really have become distant. A lot of people here, you come in on Monday morning, hey, how was your weekend? Did you have a good time at the family gathering on Saturday? That connection is lost. So it's become more of a business thing, which, I mean, really, we are a business. But some of those connections are a little bit frayed when you're doing nothing but email with people that you need to work with. The hardest one right now is the elections folks, the city clerk's office, and several dedicated employees who are working beside them on absentee ballots. I can't say enough for how wonderful those people are. And Sticks in particular have just done stellar work here on staff. And we want to give them some kind of reward when this is over, because they have really, worked their hearts out to make that election go. And interestingly enough, Tom, I don't know if many citizens know this, but there's another one right on its heels scheduled for May 14th. That's a special election to fill Sean Duffy's seat in Congress. So there won't even be that long a break before those folks will be back in action.
Just kind of maybe share one or two things that maybe what you've learned and seen so far in this situation.
Yeah, well, Tom, we have a group called the Emergency Planning Team that meets once a month, and we talk about disaster preparedness. Most of the time, we're usually talking about shorter term durations like tornadoes and ice storms and those kind of things that maybe go on for a few days in terms of the after effects, but not really long. This is one of those incidents that's going on for a very long time. So I've learned that beyond the initial health issues, we have to make sure we're protecting our staff and our community. There's a longer term issues. A lot of the meetings now we're talking about how to help people in the community that are down. They've lost their jobs. Their businesses have been closed. They have needs that might be as basic as food and clothing type situations. How can we work with other community players to make those happen? Those aren't the kind of things you talk about in a lot of the meetings for emergency planning when it's more of a short-term event. I went through one, and when I was in Ripon years ago, we had some flooding, and we had to put our plan in action. But again, the duration of that was a night and the next morning kind of thing, dealing with it into the next day a ways. I guess it maybe took a couple of days to wind its way through. But the length of this and the types of issues that come up that you would never dream about is probably the biggest thing I've learned, that it's really all encompassing in terms of the social, the human, the physical, all the different needs that you have all kind of rolled together.
What can you give our viewers in a sense of hope, relief from you as the top official of our city of Marshfield? Can it give me just a little bit of what you'd like to say to the public out there?
Well, thank you, Tom. That's really important, because when you turn on the news, you hear the numbers in the United States and across the world, and how many people have been affected by this, and it kind of wears you out. But I would say that the response we're getting in Wood County and Central Wisconsin is very positive in terms of what I'm hearing with personal hygiene habits, social distancing. People really learn to live differently, and as a result, there are indications. I'm not a scientist, but there are indications that we will probably turn out better than it could have been, and we are going to get through this with the help of everybody working together. And that's what a small community in central Wisconsin is all about. Marshfield is a special place. We are going to come out the other end. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And, you can argue about what day it's going to be or what week it's going to be, but I think people are doing the right thing here. They care about their friends and neighbors. And as a result, the effect will probably be minimized from what we could have experienced. And hopefully the end will be sooner. So I would encourage everybody to hang in there, keep practicing those good disciplines, keep encouraging others to do the same. And as a community, and I mean that in the biggest sense of the word, we're going to make it through, and we're going to come out, I think, stronger in terms of the fact that we are showing our concern for those around us, and that we are bound together by this incident. And thank you too, Tom. Thanks for all the work you're doing to get the word out about not only what the city is doing, but what the community more broadly is doing, how they can get help, how they can plug in to be part of what needs to be done, and just the importance of getting good communication out there with the public. I thank you for that.
Well, thank you for joining us back. I have Josh Miller, Development Services Director from the City of Marshfield, and we're going to talk about what's happening in his department regarding COVID-19. Well, Josh, how you doing over there?
Doing well. I'm working from home, and that's going okay so far. So.
All right. Well, thanks for taking your time to do this interview. Let's go right into the first question. I have 6 of them or so here to ask you. Let's talk about issuing building permits, fences, inspections. How is that done at this time since people can't enter the building?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually are still able to issue building permits through this time. Obviously, we aren't allowing people into the office to fill out permits, but you can fill them out online at the city website under the Development Services Department. We have an applications and permits page, and you follow the instructions on that page. You can click on any of the permits. They're all fill-inable, and so you can fill them in through that process, and then you have to submit them online or via email. And there's an email address there to submit them to. As far as payment goes, you can either mail that in or call the number on there and make payment arrangements through that process.
Okay, so you still have staff working probably remotely to do a lot of this work then?
We do, yeah. Our inspectors are still there, so we still will be doing on-site inspections, still practicing social distancing and doing best practices for that. But we still have staff. All of our staff are working. They're able to work. Some of them are able to work remotely, and we're making arrangements to do process payments and things like that certain times of the week. So it's not as efficient as it used to be or as responsive, but we're doing a good job, I think, of keeping up on inquiries and requests and being able to work remotely where we're available.
All right. Well, this is a good chance to just introduce a little bit your staff, as in positions, I should say. What's out there? Is it like a plumbing inspector? Can you just name those kind of titles? You don't have to name the individual, just the titles of what you have that be working out there if someone's interested in needing to get an inspection.
Yeah, we have our three main building inspectors that work in our department. We have the UDC Uniform Dwelling Code Residential Building Inspector. So he takes care of most of the new construction for residences and remodels and things like that. And then we have our plumbing inspector who deals with the plumbing related issues, and then our commercial electrical inspector who deals with the commercial projects as well as any electrical applications and permits.
All right. Well, that's one of those necessities that can't stop. There's building going on yet, and plumbing issues can happen. We can't control those, and that's why that other workforce is out there making sure that's continuing. Correct?
Correct. And we still are able to answer any zoning and planning related questions. So our staff is still available via email, and then if you call into their work line, they'll be able to receive those messages as well and be able to respond to those questions.
Okay. Do you have a direct line that goes to like maybe your administrative assistant if someone was looking for a phone number at this point?
Yeah, it's 715. I'm just gonna double check here.
Yeah, that's all right.
715-486-2016. And right now that number is being forwarded to our building inspector, but we are able to address any questions that come to that line.
All right. Well, thanks,
That's
Josh.
I'll repeat that for anybody. It's 715-486-2016.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much. Or they can always call that general line to the city, 486-2000. I believe there is a tree ring, and I would bet that the development services is one of those numbers. So, all right. Let's talk a little bit about historic district. That's right in part of your department of what you do. And we have a wonderful historic district and ways to maybe see some of that online. If you're living nearby or can walk, they do encourage walking outside right now. Maybe there's a time to look into that as if you're just a visitor or I guess someone that lives here, I should say.
Yeah, we actually, over the course of a number of years, we've developed historic walking tour brochures for all of our historic districts. We actually have 5 total districts, 4 residential and 1 commercial. So a portion of our downtown is in a historic district. And then we've got 4 others. We've got Pleasant Hill, Upham Mansion, which basically is around the block around the Upham Mansion or the Upham House historic district. We have the West 5th 6th Street district, which basically is west of Oak Avenue, and then along 5th and 6th Street up until about Adams Avenue. And then we have the Park Street Historic District, which encompasses a number of the homes along Park Street between Central Avenue and east of Oak Avenue. And then Pleasant Hill is the neighborhood just east of the library, east and south of the library. So we've got all of those districts have walking tour brochures. Those are available online on the city website. So if you look up the Development Services Department under Historic District, you can find the maps that show the boundaries of the district, as well as any, and you can also download the brochures. They don't print as nicely in PDF because they're rather large brochures, but when places are open to the public, you can actually collect those brochures. We have them available in the library, at the chamber. They're available at the Wildwood Station in the Wildwood Zoo, and most of the hotels actually probably still have them. So.
All right. Well, I just learned quite a bit. I was just thinking of the east side and being still new to the Marshfield area. There is a lot places, and they do encourage people to get out and walk. And I think that's an idea. If you're at home, go on the website, you have internet, and look to see what they're about. If you have a printer, print it out. Or take a smartphone with you, I guess, and look at those. I bet you there's some history about some of the homes or areas that they could read right there when they're looking at it. And it's a good way to still practice social distancing, but getting outside. And we're taping this on the 3rd of April. This weekend, if anybody's watching here, or even next week, the weather's going to be nice.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tom. As as the weather continues to improve and people are out and about, and especially as with those parents that are getting a little bit cabin fever with their kids home all day, and a great educational opportunity. There's a lot of really good information in those brochures talking about the history of the homes, architecture, things like that you can really take a lot from with those brochures. Now, there's other brochures out there as well. There's a brochure about the 2442, the Sioux Line locomotive on the south end by the zoo. And then there's other architectural buildings of architectural interest, I think is what it's called. And that talks about historical buildings that are maybe not in an historic district or have a historic affiliation, but it does talk about the neat architecture in the community. So there's other brochures available beyond just the historic district ones.
Yeah, and a lot of people just don't think of the city and then your department doing stuff like this. It's I mean, some people do, some people don't, but what a great piece that you have in your department with your planning and zoning, all that, to have some kind of this. I think it's somewhat unique that you guys are able to have actually, I believe, a committee. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have an historic preservation committee. They typically meet once a month. Usually it's on the first Monday of the month, and they talk about different topics. And they're really the resource that put these brochures together. So we've got a lot of great people on that committee that have a lot of knowledge, a lot of great resources for the history of the community. And it's really our culture for this community is um, part of part of the history and the culture of the community it goes back to the late 1800s, where we used to be called the Hub City, for a reason, because we had a lot of train lines that used to run through here, and then big in the lumber industry historically. So there's a lot of great history in Marshfield, and to be able to delve into some of that and look through some of that information readily, and it's only done with the volunteers and the folks on the Historic Preservation Committee, as well as staff, but they put a lot of hard work into those resources. And then we also, if you're within a historic district, you're available for tax credits as you do improvements on your homes, as long as they follow the Department of Interior standards. And that's where our staff comes into play. If people have questions about doing work on their homes that are within an historic district, then we can provide help with resources and help them get some tax credits for their projects, depending on what they're doing.
All right. Well, the time is now, if you're cooped up, to do a little bit of history, and you can do that right online. All that stuff is available through your pages on the city website at ci.marshfield.wi.us, and just go under development services, and you'll find the historic information.
And really the staff person to contact would be Bryce Hembrook. He's our city planner, and his phone number is 715-486-2074.
All right. Thanks, Josh. We've got a couple more questions here I just want to ask you before we let you go. Small business, you do a lot with businesses. That's a big part of what you do. Can you tell me of any financial help? I know the chamber, you work with the chamber a lot. What's out there that you can just share in a brief amount of time?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. That's a great question, and that's something we've been working on very actively right now. There's actually it's a slow process. Obviously, the federal government just approved the CARES Act not too long ago, and there's a lot of information in that and a lot of things to sort out in order to provide funding to businesses. So a lot of the programs are working through the Small Business Association, the SBA, and we're working together, the city, Mackey, and Main Street. We're all working together to put together kind of some resources that people can utilize, and we're all hosting that on the Mackey page. So they have a COVID-19 business resources landing page, and all those resources will be available. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but we're kind of actively updating that page and making sure that the information is current, the links are accurate, and they actually work. But right now, I think there's and I got to look up the name of it real quick here. There's a program that becomes available today where people can apply through their local lending institution if it's an SBA approved institution, and it's called the, let me see here, Paycheck Protection Program. And that's a new program available starting today. And basically, I won't go into all the details, but if you want to look up the Mackey COVID landing page for resources and click on that information, that'll provide should provide some guidance for how to get in touch with their local lending institutions and what that program will help them with. And hopefully there will continually roll out additional information for assistance for businesses and related to any stimulus that the government's doing.
All right. Yes, Mackey has a lot of good information, and you can go right to their homepage. We do have a link through our COVID as well under your department, development services, I believe. And I believe there's also another area that shows at the bottom of where our chamber under Mackey that has that link as well. So otherwise just Google it and it's there, or I would assume you can call the chamber. They're open. Even though if you're not a chamber member, I'm sure they'll direct you to their website and help those people out.
Yeah, the chamber's open. Obviously, people can reach out and call me. My number's 715-486-2075. Certainly happy to direct whatever resources we can to folks. And we know this is a difficult time, and we're here to support them and do whatever we can. Certainly not an expert in those things, but if they have questions, happy to help answer whatever I can and get them information and those resources, connect them with those resources.
Alrighty, well, thanks, Josh, for that. I'm sure that people appreciate that, the city helping out in that area. I have one last question. I just, if you have anything else, I let you mention that at this time. I came up with some of the questions along with just our city leadership with you too. Anything that we missed, or I guess at this point in time, I know there's so much we can talk about, you want to mention at this point?
No, I mean, we're still open for business. I think, a lot of the projects, as you mentioned, are still going. We're still doing inspections. Construction still taking place throughout the community. I think there will be, obviously, everybody's going to be impacted by this, this COVID-19 situation, and it's frustrating because we don't have answers right now. We don't know how long this will go on for, but we're going to continue to try to provide those resources to the public and to the business community. And again, if there's questions, we'll do our best to try to help out. We know that there's a lot more questions than answers right now, but we're here for you to help you through it as best we can. And just know our hearts and prayers are with you guys right now and with the whole community. So that's we're here for you.
All right. Well, thank you, Josh, for all that information coming from your department, Development Services. And we'll probably check back in down the road again with your department, see how things are going, report back to the community, because the community comes and seeks you guys out for information. That's how things get done around here. You do have to have permits, yet those have not changed. And we need inspectors to go out there, make sure things are being done properly to code. We don't want to have that issue, and there's still quite a bit going on that's very essential to keep our infrastructure in place here in Marshfield, in the city. And we appreciate your department and your people going out there at this time. That's always a scary part of people going out, but at this time right now, we're lucky that there is no cases that we've heard of reported from from the county and in our area where we live here in Marshfield as of April 3rd. Well, Josh, I'll let you go. Thanks again for helping me out and giving information out to the community.
No, thanks for doing this, Tom. It's good to get this information out there. And if there's other opportunities and ways that we can, promote the resources and things like that, maybe do more in-depth as resources become available. But happy to be involved.
All right, thanks again. Well, we're going to wrap up the Connections program, and I want to thank Steve Barg as well as Josh Miller from the city of Marshfield for sharing that information. You can always tune in throughout the month on our Connections program that I have. Again, I want to thank you for joining me. I'm Tom Loucks, Communications Director for the city of Marshfield.